And we're live.
Hello!
Hello!
La, la, la. Hello, all. Welcome. It is Thursday afternoon, Generational Change. I'm Jen.
I'm Peter, and we're still having technical difficulties.
Well, no, we're not. We know what it is, and it's not us. It's actually...
It's out of our hands.
It's out of our hands. It has to do with an exterior internet situation, and as a result, don't ask me how or why.
But it just so happened to take place at the moment that we were supposed to go live.
Yeah, well, yeah. But not just that, we're on an auxiliary system, so it's fine, but it's not ideal. And as a result, we also don't have, the lighting won't work. And I can't even begin to explain to you how the lighting and the internet are connected, but apparently they are.
Monday.
Yes, it's getting fixed tomorrow. They're sending somebody out tomorrow. Again, this is not our problem. This is a, paid service provider problem.
Travers, that's great to know. Obviously, we would love to have Claire Daly and Mick Walsh on the show. I have emailed both. Excuse me.
Okay, first of all, Rania Khalek should beat me to those things.
Yeah, that's true.
Rania's a real journalist. That's her job, and she really should do it. And she does, and she's amazing, and she's one of my favorites. So good. I'm glad she does that. I rely on her for that information. And also, she has a much bigger platform. She should definitely get there first. But yes, I'm not, and I am not in competition with Rania Khalek. She is in a whole different level than me.
Definitely not. Colin, could you please drop the link, the video for James Carville? Because if we're going to talk about somebody who thinks they're a journalist but really isn't one, I mean, this is... He's
never said he was a journalist. He's always been
Oh, no, Jen Psaki thinks she's a journalist.
Well, she probably went to J school because I'm sure she went to J school and came out of J school and went into policy or whatever, got her into that position. But, to get her little White House job, she played the game, but that doesn't really make that she was an actual journalist.
We have spoken at great length on the show about how there is a consultant industrial complex.
Oh, yeah.
And there is nobody who is higher up on that ladder than James Carville.
When I think of him, I think of he's the OG. Like in terms of like Democratic Party consultants and little talking heads, when you're talking about the modern current status of the Democratic Party, the Clinton era Democratic Party, to me, I think of Carville as like that. Am I wrong?
And he's not.
No, he is just.
His role is so bad is the fact that it's not just him.
Yeah. It's
his wife as well, Mary Madeline, who also happens to be a political consultant. She's a consultant for the Republican Party.
Right, which I always kind of, and it's funny because I remember thinking when I was younger how ridiculous that is, that if you were that far apart on things, especially things like right to choose, like how could you, it's gonna be challenging. It is what it is. Like if you're that far apart on those things, how can you really be together? And I always question that. And then over time, it made more and more sense. First of all, they're both like political carnies. They're both white collar campaign carnies, both of them. And, you are so welcome. You are so welcome.
Colin, can you please drop the video?
But if you make me lose my train of thought, then I lose it.
I didn't mean to do that.
So my point is about Carville and her is it took me a while, but I realized the reason that they get along is because they really are the same. The parties are the same. They're all the same.
Each other.
Right.
Like people think that there's a difference. And
as I get older and realize the issue is capitalism. And when you realize that it's whoever buys and pays them and they're bought and paid for by the same people. So then therefore they're the same.
So Democrat Party loyalist, and that's just the nicest thing I can possibly say about Jen Psaki. She decided to have on James Carville the other day to give his wonderful thoughts about Nikki Haley.
I hope Randall's watching. I hope Randall's watching, our patron.
So Nikki Haley, apparently, which shouldn't come as a surprise, is the absolute darling of the neoliberal Democratic Party. Now, a little caveat that came out this afternoon.
They're equally warmongers.
We're going to have a lot to talk about with Ryan Grimm in a few minutes, but make no mistake, the two parties work hand in glove when they want to push somebody out. So Mr. Carville simply couldn't help himself when he was on with Jen Psaki.
I don't want to relitigate 2016, but Bernie Sanders cost is one of the reasons that Trump is there. I think this is great.
He can't help himself, can he? He simply cannot help himself.
We were stuck with Trump because of Bernie Sanders.
It's Bernie Sanders' fault. Yeah.
Which is, I don't see how. If now, had Bernie been the one that went up against Trump and lost in an embarrassing fashion, then it would be his fault. But it's so, he is a farce of himself. He's not even real.
He is a caricature at this point. Like he's not even real. And you know what? For a guy that comes off that way, he never seemed to give a damn about his bald head before, and yet now he only goes on TV with these stupid hats on.
I think and
the audacity with him with that United States Marine Corps hat. We all know he didn't serve in the Marine Corps.
Did he not?
Of course not.
How do you say of course not? I don't know. Don't say that if you don't know that.
Let me double check just to be sure.
Okay, I'm just saying. Now I'll argue that he could have found a better groomed hat. Like that looks kind of like it has the shredded edges, and he could have looked a little bit more.
I apologize. He did serve in the Marines, and not only did he serve in the Marines, he served in Vietnam. So okay, that's the only level of respect that I give him.
Thank you. My point being that the type of hat, to me, it just looks very sloppy.
It does. But he
looks very unkempt.
He's a sloppy guy with a lot of money.
Yes.
That Nikki Haley is saying, our hats off to these Republican donors that continue to support her when, obviously she doesn't have that much chance.
Just the idea that they are so gleefully cheering on the fact that Nikki Haley is getting heavily funded by billionaires.
Yeah. Can we go back to the last thing, though, which is, okay, so now we just confirmed that Carville is in fact a Marine and that he did, in fact, serve in Vietnam. And so now what he's doing is he's showing support for the biggest war hawk that's running for president. And that to me makes it even more despicable because people that I respect, veterans, as I was watching Matthew Ho this morning.
Especially Vietnam vets. But any vet, truthfully, it's all a sham. So like when I sit there and I watch someone like Matthew Ho and the people of the Eisenhower Network, and these people are out there doing everything they can to stop this bullshit from happening. And he's sitting there with his U.S. Marine Corps hat on and cheerleading for someone who is a giant warmonger. And he's the Democrat. Like, it's so bizarre. And a veteran.
But every day that she's in there, every day that she's on the attack is a good day. And she's putting Donald Trump front and center. And a lot of these billionaire Republican donors that I really don't care for very much, thank God. I never thought, thank God for maybe the Coke.
Like the whole I don't care for these billionaire donors. And
who's paying for him?
Who's paying for your ass? Who's paying for Jen Psaki's show?
Exactly. Which billionaires?
Who owns MSNBC? Right. NBC Universal.
You don't care about those billionaires? Then why are you simping for them?
but give the money. You know, as long as it's helping us politically, then it's okay.
There, but to me, he is just totally a Clinton simp. And I think of him in that total genre. And because of that, he's just online. But it's like, they don't even realize that they've crossed over to the other side. That's how ridiculously cultish they are.
They've blurred the line.
They don't even see it. Difference. So this is a Vietnam veteran arguing for a war hawk.
Or something, but keep her in there and stay on the cutting edge, because that's gonna cost him. I promise you. And I think if Cheney is giving us some money, great. I'm all for it.
We're going to do a cheers to the Koch brothers and Liz Cheney in 2024. Welcome to 2024. Okay. Here's where we are.
Oh my God! I didn't even realize it was that bad.
Well, they really have just gone so far to the right, and to them it's just so matter of fact that now they're in bed with these people. It's very strange to me, and whatever. You want to sit there war hawking with Nikki Haley, war hawk with Nikki Haley, have at it. But the fact that I find it, when I hear him talk the way he talks about Trump, it comes off extremely insecure to me. When I hear, and especially men, with women, it's almost just kind of like, I don't know, it's annoying, and it's annoying in its own way when women are so freaked out by Trump. It's almost like, just suck it up, buttercup. But when it's men, I feel like, why are they so emasculated and so insecure and so threatened by him? Because it really isn't about policy. It's nothing reasonable. It's just that his persona is so threatening to them. It's nothing that he's done. It's not like James Carville cares about the environment and he's worried that Trump is going to be bad for it, or James Carville cares about saving people and cares about war. He obviously doesn't care about those things. So what is it about Trump that he finds so threatening, other than it's just Trump? Which then makes me think that either just, I don't know, is it a small penis thing? Just complete emasculate, like people are so threatened by him. No, it's weird.
When it comes to women, from my observation, it has a lot to do with, perhaps repressed memories and bad experiences.
Well, women have all been violated.
Yeah, so I think that's
true.
Trump is just so chauvinistic in his disposition in many instances that I think that it just triggers bad memories of experiences that a lot of women have gone through in one time or another. The thing with men, I'm not really sure, but I think that there's a jealousy factor. I think because Trump literally is just a glutton for punishment, and it completely bounces off him. Like, he doesn't react to it. Like, it really bothers him. And yeah, he'll totally talk about this person and that person, but at the end of the day, he doesn't run from competition. He runs towards it, like, every time.
On his terms. That doesn't mean he's going to waste his time and show up for a debate that he doesn't need to go to.
What does it say, though, about Jen Psaki in particular? This person was the press secretary of the president of the United States for over 2 years, and she ends up getting this job.
Well, it's a very common revolving door.
Like,
you are talking about somebody that is a press secretary, often does transfer over to media. I mean, another media job.
I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing, but in this case, the fact that the MSNBC, CNN sycophants out there complaining left and right about how bad Fox News is, this is just as bad.
But this is their team, so they're okay.
So their team, it's okay. You're
that's
supposed to be a journalist host of a news show, and you're cheerleading for Nikki Haley against Donald Trump.
And it's just going out of your way to lick the boots of Liz Cheney for whatever reason. Like, you just felt the need to get that in there when it wasn't even.
Hey, listen, I appreciate the transparency. I mean, on that, from that perspective,
tools are gonna tool.
Yeah, from that perspective, it doesn't bother me.
I don't mind that. Look, it has been very common.
But it's still wrong.
Former press secretary or spokespeople in the White House often go, like George Stephanopoulos. I mean, it's common. Okay, that's a common revolving door. And of all the revolving doors in DC, it doesn't come in closest to the most offensive. That's the problem. So, I'm much more concerned with not the people that become talking heads. They were talking heads in the White House. Now she's a talking head out of the White House. She doesn't have any more power than she did when she was in the White House. She's still a talking head. So that's a lateral. Now, what bothers me is the revolving door of people that come in and then go into lobbying positions, and now they're paying and bribing the people that they worked with, or they now are the ones that are taking the bribes from, all of it. That's what's gross.
He's right. No, we need a strong Republican Party.
Yes.
That'd be important. Just text them just in case. I really think the unheralded part of this whole video, though, which never really seems to get the proper attention, is the fact that Carville felt the need to call out Bernie at the very beginning. They will never get over the fact that they lost control of the narrative with a wide swath of voters in this country that will not be fed the Democratic Party bullshit line of, yeah, we suck, but the other side's worse. People are just not going to swallow that anymore. It's part of the reason why the polling numbers show that Trump is tracking to get back in there. It's part of the reason why RFK is doing phenomenally well. And individual states, he's basically at double digits. It shows that there is a desire for that change. There's a reason why, and despite what people are out there talking about when it comes to Dr. Cornel West, that he has switched parties again. No, he had to start a party so he can ensure as an independent candidate that he can get on the ballot, which he's already done in 3 states and climbing. You know, he's on Alaska.
Each state has a different strategy that works best to get on the ballot, and some of it makes
RFK had to do it as well.
It's not a big deal. It's not like he's going in with another party and sacrificing his values. He's just calling it that they're going to create that so that they have less hoops to jump through to get on ballots. It's strategy.
And not only that, but again, you look at it from, you know, the names, it's catchy. You know, you got We the People for RFK and Justice for All for Dr. West.
He was just track of time. He said, oh, shoot. Yeah, sorry. But he doesn't even curse in text.
He's a Boy Scout.
He is a Boy Scout.
He's a Boy Scout. Yeah. And anybody who rags on him, I mean, like I said, just be grateful that there is somebody really connected in DC who gets to sit in the White House press briefing room, gets to push on people. Yeah, there's no such thing as benevolent billionaires, but the billionaire that happens to own The Intercept is okay with them doing real journalism. It's why he can do it. It's why Ken Klippenstein can do it. You know, there are some people out there that have leverage to, can they push it 1,000% the way somebody like Jimmy does? No. But you know what? Jimmy's not a journalist, and people need to stop referring to him as one. But
who refers to him as that? I don't know anybody who refers to him as that.
Ryan Grimm's a journalist.
Yes, Ryan Grimm is a journalist.
Pretty good one.
Yes. You know, and I do recognize that there are people on the left, that are not always happy with him being as charitable as he is to the squad. And that he might be a little bit too nice about stuff and not challenging. And I appreciate that. And I get that. I do get that. But I don't feel like that's my purpose to do that. That's what I'm saying.
The purpose is, and I will say this again. Do I think that some of them have been a letdown? Absolutely. There's no question that they have. And Ryan would say as much. But if you're going to tell me that we're better off with having Joe Crowley in Congress instead of AOC, and we are better off having Mr. Clay instead of Cori Bush in Congress.
We're going to have to talk about that too at some point.
And apparently she's already been completely absolved of any wrongdoing.
Good. And that should get this, obviously it should get more coverage.
100%. But remember, guys, AIPAC has pledged $100 million and specifically to take out as many members of the squad as humanly possible. So there is a reason why, even though we can be frustrated with them, never doubt that once you're inside the halls of power, it's a whole other ballgame. And being ready for that is not something that I think most people fully understand. But if there is somebody who does understand it, it is the person who is the editor-in-chief at The Intercept.
It's the DC Bureau Chief
I
of
said,
The Intercept.
You keep correcting me because I keep saying
because
overall.
I do. And his recent book, his 2023 book, which was a follow-up to We Have People, is called The Squad. And Ryan Grimm, how are you?
Welcome back to Generational Change.
I'm good. How you guys doing?
We're good. So let's start with, because I heard your question at the State Department, and I was wondering that very same thing myself, actually, and I wasn't privy to the information you have. So just to give a little background to people, Ryan's question had to do with the timing of the cutting of funding to UNRWA in relation to how soon that came down after the Court of Justice opinion. So would you please elaborate on the dates and the things that you had pointed out as to this just doesn't seem right?
Yeah, and I think that he made some news there. Some of what he said I think was not yet in the public domain and is interesting stuff. But right, so Friday morning is when the ICJ came out with its ruling, and we had known for a very long time, that the ruling was coming on the Friday. It was going to be Friday morning, very early actually, because it was at The Hague, so very early East Coast time here. And then within about an hour of The Hague ruling that there's a probable case here for genocide and that Israel needs to, stop and come back to court within a month to demonstrate how they have what steps they've taken to stop this genocide and to actually let humanitarian aid start flowing. The U.S. announces that they're going to pause all funding for UNRWA, the relief agency that works in Gaza, and so what I asked about was the timing, and what I wanted to get from him was, when did the Israelis brief the U.S.? How did they make a decision so quickly? And so what he said is that they learned Wednesday from UNRWA directly. That they had gotten this information from the Israelis, found some of it to be credible enough to terminate some of their staff and to suspend some others, and that they were going to do an investigation. And so then he said they took Thursday, spoke with Israel sometime Thursday, and then the UN made an announcement on Friday, which is an interesting point to add. It doesn't force the U.S. to either cut funding or to announce that they're cutting funding within an hour of the International Court of Justice issuing its ruling. Like, those are all still choices, but those are so he did confirm that they cut funding on the very day that Israel briefed them on these allegations.
Yeah, it sounded to me, though, that he was saying something along the lines of, oh, but this has been something that we've been discussing for a while. This isn't the only reason that that's happening. Like, it sounded to me like he was trying to get out of there being any sort of link between those. The reason that they cut funding wasn't just because of that.
Sort of. I mean, in the past weeks, you've had Israel making a whole bunch of different attempts to undermine UNRWA. One was, that some of the employees celebrated October 7th. Another was that a lot of the fighters from October 7th had gone to UNRWA schools. I was actually at the briefing where a reporter, I think from Christian Broadcasting Network, tried that one on the State Department. And to their credit, they said, well, basically every kid in Gaza goes to an UNRWA school. So you've got to break down in logic there. Like, everybody there. So anything that happens is going to be done by people who went to those schools. So there were a bunch of efforts underway. It was this one that's saying that there were these 12 staff that was the one that finally landed. There had been a lot of public talk in the Knesset, both in the last couple months, but also for years now, of Israel trying to get rid of this agency. Like, they really do not want this agency to continue to exist for a variety of different reasons. And now Sky News is reporting that it actually is 4 of the 12 actively participated, went into Israel, according to this Israeli intelligence dossier. And I guess the rest, some of them weren't even connected with UNRWA. Some were not connected with Hamas. The rest were said to have played some kind of logistical role, or got a text message to be somewhere, but it's not clear whether they were there or not. So the intelligence, as it was reported on last Friday, has kind of been reduced significantly over the intervening days. But the number of countries, suspending aid has only grown.
Yeah, it's unbelievable to me. Like, for me, I don't believe a word that Israel says. I'm referring to Israel as if it's a person speaking, just for point of reference. But like I always say, how Israel is lying is its lips are moving. So the problem is that I don't believe anything that they say ever. And they never allow independent investigation. So it makes it very, very, which obviously, why would they? But the fact that the United Nations actually validated some of the information. Okay, so that validates why people should be fired. Okay, fine. So you fire some people, but I don't see how that connects to cutting off funding. And it's not just for Gaza; it's the West Bank too.
Right. And also Jordan, Syria, Lebanon. Like, yes, they operate.
Refugee camps, all the refugee camps in the area.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But yes, if I think Norm Finkelstein had said, like, if, an American university was found to have some members of the janitorial staff, because it's not as if these were senior officials. Like, that would be one thing. These are, I think, 7 were teachers, 1 was a custodian, very low, basically
regular people,
rank and file regular people who are employed doing, because also you have to understand, Hamas has or had at the time somewhere between 30,000 and 50,000 members of its militant wing, and then it had has tens of thousands of others in the political wing. Very few of those are like, this is a guerrilla army. These are not necessarily full-time employees, so to speak, of a like Hamas standing army. So they're all going to have day jobs. And so, as Norm Finkelstein put it, like, if you found that an American university employed a janitor who would turn out to be a terrorist, you wouldn't like defund the university,
right? Unless
the university was like found to be like actively recruiting terrorists or something.
Yeah, no, we actually like universities to fund the genocide. In fact, the more they fund the genocide, the more we like those universities. So yeah, that's just a whole other problem.
That's a different side. Yeah,
it's horrible.
Yeah,
it's kind of interesting when Bill Ackman tosses $1 million at Dean Phillips and gets him to dance on a string immediately, just like that. Mm-hmm. And the fact that
so disgusting.
You're looking, and this obviously brings everything full circle into the book, The Squad. And obviously the hope for a revolution. And again, we're still holding out hope for that. We all were privy to the downright deplorable, and I don't use that word lightly because it gets misused quite often, the language of who I still believe is the Speaker of the Democratic Party, Nancy Pelosi. But the bigger issue as it relates to AOC is the fact that she really is refusing to put herself in harm's way at a time where it's absolutely necessary, in our humble opinion, for her to put herself in harm's way for the sake of...
We don't mean physically.
Well, yes.
Right. Stop saying
politically.
That. Correct. Correct.
Anyway. You cannot stand on the fence on this issue. And I do think that you address a number of those issues in the book related to how, you can't be a halfway revolutionary. If you really want to go for this,
you can't vote present.
Yeah, you got to make a stand. And right now, when a stand is absolutely necessary, and you're going on the morning shows, Alex, you have the ability and the power to basically say, well, listen, you know what? Joe's going to have to earn our votes. We're not doing X, Y, and Z right now. Instead, she's trying to tout him as this, great person to support right now. It's a really bad look.
And she refused to say the word genocide. She really danced around it. And I got to ask you seriously, and here's the thing, I've always been I've never had a problem with her. I complain when anybody votes present. I don't like that. I just think it's stupid.
If you're going to do it with Tulsi, you do it with
I do it with everybody. But so the thing is, I've always been extremely reasonable and fair with her, just like anybody else. I don't think she should have been held to any higher standard. I think people just put way too much stock in this like iconic thing. But there have been times where I think that she could do better as what I would consider to be somebody on the mission of changing things. And tap dancing around that. I'm assuming you saw that. How do you what do you say about that? Because I know that you have relationship with them and you've always been able to give them, coverage, and it's been fairly positive, but it's not a good look.
My own criticism of that interview was less around the dancing around the term genocide, because I feel like our politics struggles to deal with substance, and we're always trying to kind of abstract things away into just fighting over a single word. And if we can get somebody to say a word, then they're on your team. If they won't say a word, you're not on your team. Then the rest of it doesn't matter. What I found more troubling about that interview was how supportive she was of Biden throughout, and that because Biden doesn't really have he doesn't feel a credible primary challenge at this time, despite the fact that you've got Cenk trying to run, you got Marianne running, you got Dean Phillips running. He's not feeling any of it. And I think that if there were a progressive primary challenger, he might be handling this situation a little bit differently. Like he might feel the heat a little bit. And in the absence of that, all that the progressive left, such as it is, can do is maintain some criticism of him, that so that he has to do something to bring the coalition together. If he feels like he's got the coalition together, and okay, we'll send the campaign out to Michigan and we'll talk to the people in Dearborn, we'll figure that out. But otherwise, we've kind of got this situation handled. Then he's not going to feel the political pressure that he needs to feel. And so I thought that was the part that it felt like she had made the decision that she's in on the campaign, and she's going to figure out how to message that. And that meanwhile, you've got unconditional support for absolute wholesale mass slaughter.
Yeah.
You put out a very pointed tweet a little while ago. I'm sure you know what we're talking about. Summer Lee was somebody who barely was able to skate by. The newest member, if you will, of the squad, if we're calling them that. But they really moved heaven and earth. I mean, I think her primary challenger, who was more or less a no-name person at the time back in 2022, got $5 million in corporate money.
Yeah.
And she was still thankfully able to hang on. But now you pointed out very precisely, the both of us, we went out to Cleveland to help Nina. And
Twice.
We were canvassing in, again, Cleveland is a great example of an upper Midwest kind of town where you have the very, very extremely working class part of the inner city. And then you get out into the suburbs, and these are not just any suburbs. These are monstrosity sized.
The owners all live there. Yeah. The work factory owners have to have some place to live. But Cleveland's just regular. To me, Cleveland's just middle America. It's just regular people, middle America. And anyway, that was the point of what you were saying, that regular people.
No, it wasn't my point. My point that I was making, that Ryan was making in his tweet, is it's pretty obvious that when the Democratic establishment, and again, the two-party establishments are hand in glove. It's why everyone's cheering on Nikki Haley right now. It's just too out in the open at this point in terms of who's really in it and who's not. And so if they want to move heaven and earth, just like everyone was pretending that somehow Joe had this incredible momentum in New Hampshire and that 70,000 people went out there and, signed, that there was no super PAC involved spending millions of dollars to get people to sign, the ballot.
Oh, yeah.
It's the same thing. Chantel Brown is a nobody. She's just somebody who was willing to play the part. Say, we don't want Nina Turner in Congress. Will you be our puppet? He's like, sure. I get to live a cushy life for the next 30 years. Perfect.
Is that the same person running against Summer Lee again?
No, the point being is that she was willing to play along with this idea of, okay, you wealthy people out in the burbs, you're all really independent, but mostly Republican. We're going to get you to switch over to Democrat for this election just to make sure we block Nina Turner from winning. And they're going to try to do the same thing to Summer Lee. And this is another example of just the minutia of what happens when they're trying to manipulate the rules to make sure that the establishment stays in full control. But I'm also getting the impression, and I'm sure you are as well, they're not able to protect this the way that they used to. It's almost
you mean AIPAC?
There's too many people that are too hip to the game now. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we'll see. And I have documented cases of that kind of organizing being done by not just AIPAC, but also organically from pro-Israel voters in the suburbs of Cleveland who very, very successfully, and give credit where it's due, they organized their neighbors. They got everybody involved. They sent out mass emails to everybody and said, look, and the emails were very clear. They were like, this Nina Turner is supported. It said she'll be part of the squad. Nina Turner is endorsed by Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, and AOC. And that was it. Like, that was the argument that they made. And then they'd say, most of us wouldn't usually vote in this primary, but even if you're a Republican, you can vote, this primary. And overall turnout in the district was, and in these primaries, that's always anemic. I think it was about 17% turnout across the city. In those neighborhoods that organized to bring Republicans and independents to vote against Nina Turner. Turnout was pushing 35-40%. And covering elections, like I've seen turnout movement of 10%, 15% from precinct to precinct. To see one area of the city double the turnout rate of other areas of the city is absolutely unprecedented.
Cleveland Heights.
No, well, Shaker Heights and Beechwood.
Shaker Heights and Beechwood, yeah. You just never see that, and it's
Jen's part of that group.
I am not.
I'm just kidding. That's a joke. It's a joke.
My husband's family is from Beechwood.
So Beechwood organized. Nina Turner lost by 4,000 votes. The margin in just Shaker Heights and Beechwood was like 5,000. Like, so if she had just broken even in those neighborhoods, Nina Turner wins. Like, the entire margin of victory for Shontel Brown was there. Now, whenever you have a close race, the entire margin of victory is lots of different places. But that was impressive. And so now and a lot of this was organic, like and this was happening during the Gaza war. I think if the last Gaza war, May 2021, I think if the primary had been at a time where there wasn't as much bombing, then the issue's not as hot necessarily. But whenever, like, I was going back and reading some of the AIPAC history, like 1982 is when they really first blew up on the kind of political scene. And that's when they're invading Lebanon, and Ronald Reagan's accusing them of doing a Holocaust. And so they're like, use the word Holocaust. They're really on their back feet. The invasion went poorly. They committed like horrific massacres that had them getting condemned around the world. And in that moment, there's like a stronger urge to organize politically back in campaigns. So I think 82 and 2021 and probably 2024 going to have similar feels to them because they're at war and feeling defensive. But now the kind of Hindu American opponent of Summer Lee and Hindu nationalists, I don't know if you've been noticing this, are like the most rabid supporters of Israel around the world. It's been interesting.
It's funny. I think I heard something along those lines like not that long ago, and but
it's been an interesting development to watch. Like, and the alliance between some of it is Islamophobia from some of the like more far right wing kind of Hindu nationalist elements, and so there's like an alliance there. But in anyway, so Kale Lacey over at The Intercept reported that she's telling her supporters, it's not even organic, it's coming directly from the campaign, go out and get the Republicans and tell them to switch and vote in this upcoming, in the primary in Pennsylvania against Summer Lee. So, and it was close last time.
They have that there. They have open primaries.
Well, you can re-register.
Though,
like it's early enough, you can re-register.
Okay, but you have to do, like, here you can do it, and I think it's like however many days ahead of time you have to do it, whereas some places you can just show up that day and take the ballot from whichever party you want to take the ballot. And it's so much easier to use it in that capacity. Like, here, it's so hard to get people to switch. It really is.
I'll look that up while we're talking. Yeah, it only but if you're what was clearly different in Shaker Heights and Beechwood, for instance, those folks were motivated. Like, so if there was paperwork, they were going to do it.
That's true.
These aren't like just casual people that you're hoping to like inspire to get off the sidelines.
These are what these are the real rabid, very zealot, very Zionist, and they've perfected it. They are organized. They live organized. Their whole lives are organized in districts, with schools, with shuls, with for them to organize that amount of people takes like a very small phone tree. That's the other thing. You're talking about, it's so insulated, that neighborhood, through however many congregations, and they all know each other. So it's easy when you're that insulated, I think, to be able to get the word out that way.
Ryan, you highlight a lot about the issue of, we always say this is a class war, nothing more. Typically, we'll always follow law and economic lines. There is a significant portion of the Jewish population that is dead set.
In PA, you have to be registered in the party. So they'll have to start
So they
organizing
had
that
to
now.
do it ahead of time. So they had to do, that's impressive.
No, in
because-
Pennsylvania, they have to do it ahead of time. So we'll see. We'll see if they can pull it off. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I was just saying that, because this is such a class war that we're facing, and we talk about, obviously, the significance of what Sean Fain of the UAW has done. I look at a significant portion of how this is played out with the Zionist population of this country. A lot of people in this country that are Zionists, that are going along with what Israel's doing, they're not like people like Jen. They're like people like Bill Ackman. Like they feel right at home being in the upper echelon to society, looking down on everybody else, saying, yeah, this isn't, they're just in total denial. Or maybe they're just not in denial. Maybe they just don't care and they just say that it's not a genocide, or it's, it's.
Well, for those people, it's secular. And for those people, it has more to do with the settler colony that is Israel and more about maintaining that. Whereas versus the people in Beechwood and Shaker Heights, for them, it is much more religious zealotry. So I think it's kind of different. People like, and I don't know Ackman, I don't know him personally, but a lot of times in those circles, it's much more secular Jews and secular Zionists. And that's how, and they just get away with it there too. But yeah.
Based on your experience with what you've been dealing with in the press briefing room and just people in general, are people just really still very naive to what's really going on? Do you experience like that's kind of where it's at? Or is it just so hard to wrap your head around what's really happening right now? I mean, Jen, you talk about it all the time, how it's not even the fact that the killings have exceeded. Again, they say the numbers are 27,000, but it may be closer to 35,000 at this point. What about the famine?
No, it's the chain of events. Even they ceasefire right now. The chain of events that have been in place is you're looking at 1 million dead people.
Especially when they say that DC
no post-op care, children with amputated limbs, no medicine, no antibiotic. The chain of events, like I would be able to very easily prove a causation for a lot of things that are now going to happen. So the number will not be known for months. But it's not. It's so far beyond what people think. There's no way it can't be.
Is it just a DC bubble situation? Are people really just in denial? Or are they just not talking? They're just trying to pretend like it's not happening.
Yeah, it's.
Aww.
Oh, that's a
and the dog.
But no, you're looking at cholera, dysentery, like you said, untreated illnesses.
Yeah.
And diseases, produced by malnutrition or exacerbated by malnutrition. Plus, when you have 2+ million people, although at some point it could go below that, you are going to have a lot of people who need care. Like you just look around your own life and think of like 50 people that like a significant number of those are on some regimen of life-saving medication or medication that is keeping them from collapsing into, a really a spiral.
Yeah. Well, women are giving birth every day there.
Yeah.
And this is, just like everywhere else. So it's not like just because we're having that. And something like hygiene products are important. I don't think people they have no clean water and no hygiene. So when you're showering, once a month, if you're lucky, and that's, how they're living right now, it's just it's like a, cesspool. Like, I don't see how you get out of this in any other way than with 1 million ultimately dead people. And plus we're living in the middle of the desert and now getting no food. How long does that take?
Yeah, I hope you're right. You would have to instantly be able to start surging in unlimited amounts of aid, because all the different aid products, people don't realize, are competing with each other. The medicine is competing with the food. All of those things are competing with the clothing and other supplies that people need just to stay alive. And that's before you've even thought about reconstruction.
Yeah.
Like, so if you can only get in, a couple boxes of aspirin, and at its best, they're getting in a couple hundred trucks with, food and other supplies. where's the equipment, where's the material going to come to do the reconstruction that can allow people to actually have shelter again, and to get the water system up, get the power generation going, get the internet working. Like Israel, right after October 7th, you saw Israel say, well, look, they used a bulldozer to knock over this fence over here, so we can't allow bulldozers in Gaza anymore.
Yeah. Well,
okay. Well, how are you going to? What are you going to do with all the rubble? Like the whole place is rubble.
Yeah. Well, their concept is that they're just going to go to other places, and
right.
then
That was the hope. Right.
That was level it and sell beachfront condos, and that's always been the plan. Like that's always been the plan, and they're getting away with it in broad daylight. And our representatives are not doing anywhere near enough. When I look at Rashida Tlaib standing there alone, and nobody is standing with her, and maybe a handful of people put their name on a letter, but most of them still haven't even demanded a ceasefire. It's like, I don't understand how anybody has faith in anything. Like it's just, this is crazy to me. I feel like I'm crazy. In a bizarro world.
I've always felt that Rashida was the best of the squad. I still maintain that. I think the fact that she's been fairly courageous on a number of issues, not just this one.
Even though she won't come on and talk to us.
She hasn't really done any.
No, I know. I fangirl. I'm just saying.
No, she's definitely the real deal, not disparaging any of the other members, but she really puts herself in harm's way. Obviously the conversation that's been being had this week, of course, is about Cori Bush and the money that she's had to be spending for her own personal security. I can only imagine what Rashida goes through on a regular basis. And yet it seems to me that she represents her people, and she represents them well, which is why no matter how much money they try to throw at that race, and they've already tried with Hill Harper and another gentleman to get in there and try to knock her out, and they're all saying, I ain't doing this. This is ridiculous. And I think part
also
of it,
because there are certain people that seem to at least start in this with some honor.
With some honor. And I'm sure eventually she'll get some, NPC, if you will, non-playable character that will
they'll find
somebody who'll step up and do it. But
it's getting late.
Yeah, it is.
You know what really infuriates me, and this is sort of a side note. There's about 35 Jewish people in Congress between the Senate and the House. I don't know if it's 35 or 38, but it's something like that. And not one of them was standing with her. Not one of them is doing anything other than adding your name to a very meekly worded letter. And I just find this infuriating. Like, and as somebody that you're there covering it, I used to be the media relations manager for the Indiana Chamber of Commerce. So I was always at the State House covering that nonsense. And so like, you're seeing this, I don't understand how this isn't infuriating, that they're just like going about business like this is just, we're not seeing this happen.
And can you speak upon that in terms of their ability to more or less, have this sort of coalition, if you will, because it really doesn't seem like it's there. And especially on this issue, Rashida kind of seems like she's standing all by herself.
Where are all the Jews?
Yeah, well, Corey's been there for her at times, but, it just seems to me that she really is kind of on an island.
And Bernie isn't even on the list, whatever.
Yeah, so in my book, I tell the story of AIPAC taking on Andy Levin in 2022, if you remember that moment, which I think was such a pivotal moment. And they even said out loud that their problem, and for people who don't know Andy Levin, he's the scion of this Labor Dem family. Sandy Levin was his dad. Carl Levin, who was the chairman of the Ways and Means. Carl Levin was a senator. Andy Levin was known as like one of the most, or the most pro-labor, Democrat in the House, but he was also a former synagogue president and called himself a liberal Zionist, and was also willing to be critical of Israel. And what AIPAC said out loud was that the reason they had to take him out was that he would often, support Ilhan Omar or Rashida Tlaib when they were in the barrel for something. And so having a former synagogue president standing next to them, at the press briefings, vouching for them, was extraordinarily powerful, and AIPAC recognized that, and so they did everything they could and managed to take him out of office. And
Yeah,
so that sent a real signal.
Yeah, he was just saying that he was not against BDS. Like, I think that was like a major crime, was that because otherwise he still would have talked about a 2-state solution and all that other liberal Zionist nonsense. But yeah, and they've also said multiple times that that their mission, AIPAC, is nothing about Jews. Their mission is not about Judaism, and they've said it before. And I just want Congress to sign. They all signed. How many signed that?
I don't remember the exact total, but
the resolution saying anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism,
which Debbie, of course, was the one who was pushing forward the one thing that she cares about. It seems.
That's what they're spending their time working on, is redefining things for us.
Right. Even that's the one that even Jerry Nadler got up and gave a speech against, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But he didn't do anything. They all just voted present.
I felt like they should have voted present on every single one of these. Like, I actually agree with you in general that if it's legislation, you don't vote present.
Right.
But they signaled immediately that all Republicans were going to do through October was just come up with new resolutions to put on the floor. And if you just either don't participate in them, or maybe just don't even participate in them.
Well,
just don't show up.
Time of day, but it's like you're there and you're just rubber stamping. I don't know. I just feel like, and especially something like that would be the equivalent, Ryan, of me saying 2 + 2 = 5, and they all just signed it
and they vote present.
Just fine.
Because there are some people who do think that 2 + 2 is 5. So I don't want to offend them. Yeah.
We should err on the side of reason and fact, and words have meaning, contrary to what my representative thinks.
Yeah.
And it's very infuriating. So these are 400.
That whole thing was insane. Yeah. And I thought Jerry Nadler's speech was like, he gave the historical explanation that there is and the Orthodox community that he represents in New York, they believe that Israel is blasphemous in the sense that it's anti-messianic, and that the only Messiah can be the Messiah, and that trying to create a secular Israel on earth is contrary to that. So obviously you can't call that Orthodox community anti-Semitic. So that's sort of like an easy way for Nadler to show how ridiculous it is. But also, Zionism is a creation of the 19th century. Judaism is not. Judaism is much older than the 19th century.
Yeah.
Just a little bit older than that. And so to say that this thing that is as old as the blink of an eye in historical terms is equal to one of the oldest religions that's still practicing is just so absurd.
Yeah, we're just seeing more and more information now, and I'm very thankful for certain historians like Elon Pape and people that are putting out information that a lot of us would have really not been able to put together ourselves, and I think more and more people are seeing it.
Ryan, can you speak to the importance of this whole idea about a hope for a revolution? I think that one of the big lessons here from what you've written and what you've talked about a lot, people lose faith. There's not a lot of hope out there right now. And that's why they stoke so much of it into Alex, into Rashida, into Ilhan, into Corey, into Jamal, and so on. Greg Kassar, obviously down here, you have Maxwell Frost. People looking around just hoping against all hope that we can elect people into positions of power, and they're actually going to work on behalf of the people at a time where it's so desperately needed in a way.
Someone needs to be the Mockingjay.
Yeah. Well, you thought Nina would have been that.
No, Alex, to me, that moment in 2018 was a moment where she could have, to me, I saw that. And I also think a lot of it, as I said at the time, is maturity, lack of wisdom, a lot of things. I mean, she was a kid. I was old enough to be her mother. So, you don't put those kind of expectations of people. But yes, we need a Mockingjay.
I still think, and I mention this all the time when it relates to Jimmy, in that he sucks all the air out of the room. It doesn't mean that his idea wasn't correct. You should have forced the vote. on Medicare for all. But when you are so scorched earth and literally shit and piss on everybody, you do not know how to build coalitions. So what you ultimately end up doing, it's no different in many ways than just saying, half of you people are deplorables. Oh yeah, well, I'm going to go vote for Trump just to spite your ass. And I think that there really is something to be said for people who, on the one hand, I'm not concerned about certain content creators who don't want to rub elbows with Jimmy either because they're jealous or whatever the hell the reason may be. But there is something to be said for if the face of who is trying to lead this effort isn't welcoming or isn't doing it in somewhat of a professional manner, it's going to turn people away.
Dolly Parton.
Everybody be like Dolly Parton.
That's what
But I really do think that with the actions of Alex, with the actions of Fetterman,
he's dead to me.
So but the worst part of these actions is that it forces people to lose faith in this idea that we can have a political revolution in this country, or that they even want to try.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's the biggest lesson here from why people obviously shouldn't put so much faith in it. I think all the faith needs to be put into the labor movement, because that's where the real change can happen. But we still need to participate in elections despite what people think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why I have made the subtitle the hope, AOC and the hope of a political revolution, because it's about the first Bernie Sanders campaign into the squads campaigns, and then the second Bernie Sanders campaigns. And, hope is meant to be left open-ended in that subtitle. People's hopes were very much invested in this political revolution. And I think what you said in the beginning is wise, that the world is a better place for the Bernie Sanders wing having risen up and gotten some power inside the party, and the House is better for having AOC in it rather than Joe Crowley. But it's not by any means what kind of people were envisioning, in 2015, 2016, as Bernie's filling, giant fields with tens of thousands of cheering people. And I think part of the hope comes from people look around and they recognize that all their friends agree with them. All their friends see the problems in the system, that it makes sense that this is what we ought to do. And then you confront this system that is just so stacked against you. It just doesn't make sense. There's got to be a way. And also, and when you step back, you're like, wait a minute, there's 435 members of the House, and we had 6.
Right.
That's
yeah.
And frustrated with those 6, like that, going from 6 to 218, which is what you need, to start actually passing legislation, is, couldn't be a steeper climb. And so to feel like, and so I think a lot of people, including people that were, who used to work for some of those squad members that I quote in the book, were saying we weren't going to have 218, and so you're not going to kind of talk your way and schmooze your way to 218. You just have to use your position for the narrative change that's possible, for the kind of organizing potential for down the road, to create the conditions for an eventual political revolution. And that wasn't really the route that they took.
No.
And then the question becomes, can they even get it back? But what makes it worse is that you only need to look at the actions of a Matt Gaetz and a Marjorie Taylor Greene. You can say all the negatives about them, but the fact is, if they want to go scorched earth and hold things up in DC, they'll do it. They have no...
Right, no, I don't... Their strategy is what I would love to see. Like, when they're doing stuff like that, I'm sitting there thinking, if only the people on the left would do this stuff. You know? Like, I don't hate their strategy. They just stand for really crappy stuff.
As we bring the conversation full circle, do you think it just has to do with the fact that people like Marjorie and Gaetz and, you could name a whole bunch of different, GOPers, Chip and anybody else that you want to throw out there, that they're just not accepted in DC anyway, so it's not like they care. But for people even in what you would consider the so-called progressive wing of the Democratic Party, they care about how they're treated in DC. Is it really that simple, or is there something more to it?
They're playing the game.
It's a little more, there's a little more to it than that. And actually, it's fascinating that there's been a kind of an AOC arc with MTG.
Right.
You know, when she supported Kevin McCarthy, and she's otherwise done some things that have been pretty supportive of party leadership. She got kicked out of the Freedom Caucus. She, like a lot of her original supporters, are think that she's a complete and total sellout. which is the whole thing has kind of been fascinating to watch. But also there in Washington, there is a very well financed and sophisticated outside apparatus to support people like Gates, who want to do this sort of thing. Like they own buildings, they have staff, they have access to money, they have organizing capacity, strategic capacity. That just absolutely does not exist on the left.
That's true.
There isn't even a building. There isn't even an apartment. Like, they have apartments they can live in while they're in DC, but there's no headquarters of any organized, well-financed, sophisticated operation.
Do you think if there was somebody, again, maybe we get lucky this year, maybe one person is able to break through? I still think AIPAC is going to get one of the squad members out. I think the most likely person who will get knocked off is Ilhan Omar for obvious reasons, and they will go full bore into that race. But with that said, do you think it's possible that there could be an elected official that could be brought in that can sort of be, the mother or father, whatever, but like the mother hen of the situation?
Well, that was my Nina hopes.
Sure. But do you think that that's possible? Because it's not just the 6 members that we talk about. There are other members that are in there. Raul Guevara, you have Greg Casar, you have Maxwell Frost. I mean, you have a handful of people that will vote for universal health care, that will vote for a living wage, that will vote for strengthening labor, that will vote for ending endless war. I'm curious if you think that there is that possibility that if there was somebody who came in there, because let's be honest, when you look at the Freedom Caucus or whoever relates to the bloc in the GOP that does what they do, most of them are answering to Trump, and everybody knows that. But is it possible that there could be somebody that could come in that could be that person that could corral, let's say, 15 to 20 representatives in Congress that could hold bills up without getting, let's say, a public option in a bill? I'm just saying.
I mean, I think conditions are constantly changing, and so are your assets. And so you could see a 15 to 20 person block, forming. I think that's certainly possible. And at that point, it's not necessarily the case that there's like an individual leader, on different issues. It might be different things. If Jamal Bowman survives, I think he'll be an interesting one to watch. Your point about Greg Casar is a good one, but I think the rest of the squad members, like, if they have a dozen plus allies, and they have a majority, like it's a different scenario. But but like I said, it's always changing.
Yeah. Well, we know that it's certainly not just the Congressional Progressive Caucus, because if only all those people were actually progressives, then we wouldn't have half the problems that we have. So it's just funny, like what what people consider progressive, because like right now, Jamal Bowman is on my crap list. And
what did he do? Pulling the fire alarm or?
No, I don't care about that.
No, I'm kidding. What did he do to get on your crap list?
No, because the bottom line is he attacked Norman Finkelstein. Okay.
Oh, I didn't see this. What happened?
And he called him out. He basically called him out and saying his comments were anti-Semitic. And apparently one tweet had gone. He was responding to whatever it is that Norman says. And Norman has been making this. He's been on our show. You've heard him talking. He's been making the same points about the same thing forever. So I can't imagine that Jamal heard anything otherwise, but apparently his donors didn't like his response. And then he put out something calling Norman's comments anti-Semitic. So when you're Jamal Bowman and you're going to then go criticize somebody like Norman Finkelstein on Israel, it's not a good look. It's just really not a good look.
On top of that, I'm pretty sure that Norman is a constituent of Jamal's.
That's the thing too. Yeah.
And Bowman still lost J Street's endorsement. So whatever he said didn't
So why is he doing that? Why is he like simping for the Zionists?
And they have to know that AIPAC is coming for them no matter what.
I mean,
you're not going to change that reality.
I feel like they're not handling this moment very well.
They're playing defense when you need to play offense.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Here, yes. We're talking about a genocide. Yes.
Yeah.
This is when we want
people
make
George Latimer defend what's happening there.
Yeah.
Seriously,
I mean,
something. You know, the two Justins from Tennessee, those two guys, the legislators who ended up getting kicked out and then they got voted back in because they were standing up. We need people like that to be standing on the front of the Capitol and screaming genocide and not just sidestepping the issue because your team is the one conducting it.
Ryan,
this is crazy.
Ryan, let's leave on this note. We've seen a lot of movements happen over time, but unfortunately, when it comes to populist left movements, they tend to die. They tend to, just go by the wayside. They don't last. It does seem like the movement for a free Palestine is almost mirroring to some degree the movement to free Julian Assange. This is not going away.
And Cop City.
It's all interconnected. There's not a single event. I mean, again, we saw what happened the other day. We don't have to rehash it, the whole thing with Kamala Harris and the people that they kicked out. But you've even said they will not have a moment's peace.
No, nor should they. Nor should they. I don't think any of these people, when they're in public, should have a moment's peace. I absolutely. I feel bad for Chuck Schumer's neighbors. I feel bad for Anthony Blinken's neighbors, but that's between them and them.
Yeah. But do you see this eventually having some type of a breakthrough moment? Even though, between, we obviously would love to see Dr. West on the ballot, but between RFK, Biden, and Trump, they're not only wrong, they are dead wrong on this issue. And so where do you see any movement, if any, happening as we go forward during what will be a very unique election?
Yeah. Are these things working?
I mean, globally, I think you're going to see a lot of pressure on both the U.S. officials, but also Israeli officials who are participating in facilitating this. Bolivia, Colombia, Ireland, there are a lot of other countries where people are pushing for prosecutions. You can launch a prosecution from Ireland, and then anybody who travels to the EU, has an arrest warrant out for them. If there's these rumors of a peace deal, kicking around today on the internet that Qatar says that they have indications from Hamas that they might be interested in it, that they have indications from Israel that they could be interested in it. The question of how the rest of the world kind of treats Israel after this is resolved, I think will be significant. Like, do they launch prosecutions? Does Israel become a pariah state for its treatment of Palestinians for this genocide? And what does that do to the U.S. role in the Middle East? Does that push forward some type of actual sovereignty for Palestinians with a reconstruction deal? Because the previous plan to just have Saudi Arabia and everybody else cut a deal with Israel and pretend that Palestinians don't exist that's not on the table anymore.
It's all very ridiculous to me that we're having these discussions while Netanyahu is literally saying there will never be a two-state solution. Yeah. And then we've got Joe Biden and Anthony Blinken saying, well, we're talking with him behind the scenes. Yes, I see you've gotten him under control. He's made it very clear that they're going to do what they're going to do and they do not care. So to me, the whole concept of talking about it with them that's done. There is no possibility of having a two-state solution. Israel made sure of that over the past however many years. It's not possible. And everyone knows that. And therefore, everyone who says it is lying because the people that we're talking about, they know the truth. These aren't regular just pedestrians that really still believe we could have a two-state solution.
It wasn't still possible October 6th. They had made it logistically impossible with 750,000 settlers in the West Bank. Yeah.
Right. It's not, it was never going to happen. They've been seeing to that, and we're just totally allowing it to happen. And it's very infuriating. And I think that more and more things need to be disrupted, and people's lives need to be disrupted. I am team Houthis all the way, at least as far as them blocking ships. And, the fact that we're now bombing them, it's like Israel is a detriment to our national security. It is a detriment to our foreign policy and our standing in the world. And until people realize that, we will continue to circle this drain. And as a Jewish person, it is beyond. And a Jewish person who was brainwashed Zionist for the first 40-something years of my life, it's infuriating. I was used as a tool in ethnic cleansing. And Israel, everything they say.
Have you seen Israelism yet?
No, I haven't.
You would like it.
Forward to it. Yeah. Everything they say that Hamas does is what they do.
A lot of projection.
I was a human shield. Yeah. What do you call taking a group of teenagers into the occupied territory? And yes, you send them in there with armed guards. We always had a machine gun carrying person with us so we could plant our trees in a place we ought not have been. And just the whole idea of having settlers. All of those people are human shields because they're illegally occupying someone else's territory. So just this dialogue, and we have our people in charge not handling this. They're not handling this right. I'm starting to meet with them.
I can assure you.
I'm getting called upstairs though.
Oh, okay, it's all good.
I'll leave you with this. I can assure you that having covered and taken care of her social media, whenever we put out something related to calling out the genocide that's going on, the Israelis come out in full force, but they really come out for her because they're basically saying, you're a traitor. You're a traitor to our people. You're not supposed to do that. Those are the ones that hurt the most. And that's why more and more of them need to speak up. Guys, make sure that you pick up a copy of The Squad, AOC, and the Hope of a Revolution.
Got it right here.
There we go.
Because I never do hard copies of anything anymore.
I love hard copies.
I don't dislike them, but I'm so instant gratification.
Straight on the back.
You gotta get it. Put it on your bookshelf. All right, thanks a lot, guys.
Do you do your own?
I do.
Audible?
I did my own Audible.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much,
always a pleasure.
Ryan.
Thank you, brother.
He's so nice.
He is.
And I know that there's people out there that always want us to be hard on him for him sort of being more than charitable with the squad.
I think he was pretty forthcoming about the fact that Alex is not doing enough, that they're all not stepping up in this moment.
But people don't and whatever other people have issues about other things he's covered, that's not for me. It really isn't. I am not an investigative journalist seeking to unravel other investigative journalists. My job is to build coalition and inform people what's going on. Ryan, because to some extent he has to play that game because he gets invited to things like, the State Department. And when you're people like Jimmy Dore, you're not going to get invited to the State Department. No. So you need to somewhat play a game to have access. It's called real journalism.
But if you guys haven't listened or heard or seen the interaction between Mr. Grim and I believe Mr. Kirby today, you're going to want to check that out. Big shout out to Red Cloud. Thank you for becoming a YouTube member.
Thank you.
That means a lot. For those of you
I like the red cloud, if it's what I think it is.
Well, I don't know. I ain't taking any guesses here.
And by the way, we're going to have to, at some point, talk about DSA and how disappointing that is.
Ooh, what did DSA not do?
And I am not sure which, I want to say it was California. It might be, which DSA? It was one of them. It's not necessarily the national thing, but they are literally endorsing a Zionist candidate.
Are they endorsing Katie Porter? Is that what you're saying?
No. Okay. It wasn't Katie Porter. It was a smaller race somewhere else, and their chapter is just going along with this. So, I feel like honor is just to our patrons.
Lost. Make sure you guys go over to Cash App if you don't want to put your information on the grid, but as you know, you can.
That's Department of Justice.
Mr. Well, and make sure to keep calling for Julian Assange.
Well, we'll find out what's going on with that. The update on Assange will happen, I believe it's like the second or third week in February. So it's coming up. And that will be the final hearing, at which point, if he's extradited, then the next time we'll see everybody will be in the Eastern District of Virginia.
Make sure you go to patreon.com/generational change for as little as $5 a month. You can become a supporter of our small but mighty channel. We do the best to transform politics into service, and I hope you all enjoyed our conversation with Ryan today.
We get good guests.
Try to have it be as substantive as possible.
And that's why I handle things the way I handle them, because it's been working for me so far. So I feel like for me to be any more like assertive, aggressive when I don't feel like that's my lane just wouldn't serve my mission.
No, and I think that, but I think,
and there's a lane for that. If somebody wants to question somebody's reports and have at it,
I think you're given a certain amount of leeway, even when you are talking to them, because you're coming from a place of reason, passion, and justice, as the saying goes.
I am.
So I think it's very important. This isn't about scoring points.
Right? But me, let's say, gotchaing Ryan Grim on whatever it is, whether it's real or not real, does not serve in any way, shape, or form anything. So I don't have to agree with someone and everything. Oh my God, I do love him. I love you, Tony. And he had said something before, I don't know, somebody else was, he made a comment before that was really funny, but I don't remember. Go back, and there was something else that he said that was funny that you showed me.
Our fellow YouTube member, Donald James. I will vote for Katie Porter over Schiff. I don't think she takes the AIPAC. No, she does take the AIPAC money, my friend.
Wait, does she take the money or just vote with them?
No,
she takes the AIPAC money?
Yeah.
It's so disappointing, Katie. It's so disappointing.
And look, I still think Katie Porter would be an exceptionally better choice
than Adam Schiff. Oh, absolutely.
Katie Porter.
Absolutely. At least, and I at least know with her, she'll be holding all sorts of CEOs to account.
Yeah.
She's better. And in that regard, I think would be better than like Elizabeth Warren has ever been. And there's definitely a lane for that. And I think it's important, but I'm definitely not as psyched on her as I once was.
No, and I think that that's fair.
And John Fetterman is dead to me.
John Fetterman.
I am the scene with
John
him,
Fetterman
with the flag.
John Fetterman feels like pissing on people that are protesting Free Palestine. And I'm not even convinced that that's necessarily what he really believes, but he is literally walking on the string. But it doesn't make any sense. His next election isn't for almost 5 years.
So that means that he's just being a douche.
Pretty much.
Because there's no reason for him to be doing that.
Where is the logic?
I don't know, because I feel like I am so disappointed about that. Like, it isn't just that his position is contrary to my position. It's how he's carrying on with it and how he's acting. I also didn't appreciate how he treated the journalist that had come up to him that time.
Yeah, just when he was walking to the Capitol building.
Yeah.
He was like brushing him aside. And again, he acts the way that he does also because he is Andre the Giant. Like, he literally walks around. He walks around like, you understand that I could just push you down if I wanted to, right?
Whatever. It's bully bullshit. That's what it looks like to me. He looks like a bully, and I don't like that at all.
But here's the thing that I will say, Carter Verde, which is important. AIPAC is now wide open in public.
It needs to be under total scrutiny.
They will never go back into the shadows again. They can't. It's too obvious now that they are
buying our politicians. They're buying.
But what are they? They are representative of they are the billionaire class, literally picking, I want that one out, I want that one out, and you're going to do it. And that's how Bill Ackman acted when it came to getting the presidents out of Harvard and UPenn. It was the same thing.
The problem is that if AIPAC were treated like every other organization of its kind, they would have to register their agents, their lobbyists would have to register under the Foreign Agents, it's FARA, Foreign Agents Something Act, Registration Act, Foreign Agents Registration Act, FARA. And they would have to be registered under that. And then they would have limits on the money they can give. The reason that AIPAC is able to do what it does, and no other country has somebody. It's so interesting that people like Nancy Pelosi are so concerned about the Russians and the Chinese influencing our politics, when I don't see Chinese and Russian PACs coming in and getting away with that. Because why? Because their lobbyists have to register as foreign agents. But why doesn't AIPAC have to register as a foreign agent?
Because they own the government.
Ultimately, yes. Now, is there like little hairs that they split as to what the difference is, that it's the American Israeli Political Action Committee and not just the Israeli Political Action Committee, and that the money largely comes from the Americas? And so therefore, even though they're lobbying on behalf of a foreign entity, they do not have to register as foreign agents. I find that disgusting. And so people want to know, when you single out Israel and not other places, I agree. Why do we single out Israel as opposed to, why does Israel get that benefit and no one else? Can you imagine if there was the American Chinese Political Action Committee and we were lobbying and buying members of Congress to act in the best interest of China? I mean, seriously, and why is it that somebody gets to choose and pick who the villains are and the good guys? Because really, it's so arbitrary. It's really so arbitrary. And I just think that everybody should question that as to, why does AIPAC get to spend unlimited money in our elections and our politics, and yet our elected officials blame the Russians for interference?
I can tell you that
Food for thought.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that we obviously point the finger at when it comes to the neoliberal establishment, but we are going to address in a unique way the fact that the GOP establishment, they can't seem to get Taylor Swift's name out of their mouth, but there's a bigger problem here that isn't being addressed. And of course, this is why we always say that it's kind of like when the Democrats only wanted to talk about Trump and Russia. Like, that was the only thing that was wrong. Even though Trump had a...
Let's ask you, they're saying about Taylor Swift.
It's fun that you say that, because we're going to play it now. So here we go.
And the way you do that is by taking the most brain dead, low information voters. Of course, I'm talking about Swifties, Taylor Swift fans.
That's
so
just rude.
This is Benny Johnson.
Who is that?
He's a sycophant for Donald Trump and runs a conservative channel.
He just sounds like an idiot.
Yeah. So first of all, where do you get the idea that Taylor Swift fans are the dumbest voters? Why? Because she tells them to register to vote?
Or basically what he's doing is it's their version of deplorables. And he's just basically like, Swifties are stupid. I don't know what you, first of all, the people that I know who like took their kids to that aren't stupid. But here's the thing. What give him that? Like, where does he basing that on? Why are they stupid? I mean, okay, I'm not really into teeny bopper shit, and I think the stupid bracelets don't look fun to me, and that's not my bag, but that doesn't go as to the intelligence of these people.
I have no issue with her. But
oh, no, I have no issue with
I have an issue with Travis Kelce, but we'll get to that in a minute.
Sort of worship this artist, kind of like at random, right? Like just out of the blue, suddenly Taylor Swift's the most famous person on earth. Now she's at every NFL game.
She is
with
not
her boyfriend,
the famous person on earth.
Taylor Swift has been making music for 12 years, maybe more.
Way long, and has been a way public known name for a whole hell of a lot longer than her dating this guy.
Writes all her own music.
She does. She writes all her own music. These people are so desperate to pick and blame somebody that, seriously, Taylor Swift? Really? Like, what has she done other than encourage people to vote? I don't understand.
Backed by Bud Light and Pfizer. Travis Kelce is this guy who also kind of out of the blue became this big-time celebrity, really rich, really powerful. Why? He's a tight end. He's like a glorified lineman. That doesn't make any sense. Tight ends aren't famous people in football. What are you talking about? What?
They are when they're that freaking good.
Travis Kelce is...
And I'm not a fan of the Chiefs, but damn.
Travis Kelce is right up there with Tony Gonzalez, with Rob Gronkowski, with Mark Bavaro, the greatest tight ends in the history of the NFL.
Right. Like, yes, when somebody is really that good, they get famous. And they get to be on the Wheaties box.
And Travis Kelce has personality, whether you like it or not.
Well, I don't like the pharma horse.
That's a whole other story. See, now, if you want to go after anything, you can go after the fact that Travis Kelce, who is in line because he's tight with Patrick Mahomes, NFL's golden boy, who has been doing... It gets to a point... I mean, listen, we love Peyton Manning.
I do.
But there gets to a point where it's totally gluttonous in your approach. Like, there's no ad that you will not get paid to do.
But that's it. For me, the pharma thing really changes my perspective on people.
If you're willing to take a $20 million check from Pfizer that tells you to go out there and get needled in your, I mean,
promote it.
I'm sorry, that's really messed up.
And again, I'm not making a commentary on my thoughts on getting needled. To me, someone that makes that kind of money playing ball doesn't need to be taking pharma money. And there are many other representing sponsorship opportunities. And so I think that that's telling.
And here's what I will also say about Travis Kelce. He'll never be out there advocating for universal health care through a single payer system. Why? Because if we had that, he wouldn't be able to get paid.
Oh, that's what it is.
Yeah.
That's what it is. You know what? If they're really, and I hear you, that's probably, no, put that up, because that is really what it is. That is what it is they don't like that. They believe that Taylor Swift is spreading some wokeness into the NFL. And what I find interesting, and maybe she is, I don't know, but you know what? It could use it. And I don't mean it in a snowflake way. I mean it in I don't love the complete merge between the NFL and the military that has somehow happened over the past however many years.
JR, you're going to have to prove that. I'm not aware of Taylor Swift performing in Tel Aviv.
And if she has, shame on her for doing that. And I respect artists that don't. Again, I'm not a Swiftie. I don't need, that's ridiculous. She is not what ails us. That's what I'm saying.
What world are we living in? Sure seems planned. Sure seems like something that is like concocted in order to accelerate the fame of these two people, get them to the Super Bowl, the largest screens on earth.
He's stupid.
Get maybe like a proposal after the game. This is what I think is going to happen. There's going to be like some type of proposal after the Super Bowl.
Cool.
Is rigged for the Chiefs. And then the two of these people become, reach like crazy levels of absolute fame, and then they take all that fame that has been given to them by the rotted corporate press, media, entertainment industry that explicitly backs Democrats, and then they use that in order to try and save Joe Biden.
Okay, you know what I want we can do? Oh my God, pause this. I so wish we could right now superimpose that speech from Seinfeld in the limo when he talks about the Jews use the blacks. Do you remember that?
Are you going to open with that?
So that's how ridiculous he sounds to me. Like, and yes, do I think that there's capitalism and marketing at play involving these two people here? Absolutely. And if I were a PR person for the Chiefs and one of our players was dating Taylor Swift, I'd be working that for all it's worth. And she's been bringing in so much. She's like brought in tons of money to the Chiefs organization because they've been having more attendance than they ever have. So, yes. That's exactly what I would do. And as somebody who studied PR, yes, it's actually smart, but she's not nefarious. Like,
Cheryl, I don't know if it's a hate watch thing with the NFL, because the NFL already has the highest ratings out of anything in society.
I mean, especially the Super Bowl. Like, if we're going to talk about Super Bowl views, there aren't good. But all you're getting are you going to increase teeny boppers watching the Super Bowl? Maybe if she's there. But
now she's not only going to be there, she's going to be front and center at the Super Bowl. She is going to get her own segment. They are going to pan to her in the stands anytime Kansas City, especially Kelce, does anything good.
And good. Why not?
You know what? When 150 million people are watching it, that's what's going to happen.
I much prefer that than their link to the military.
Agree.
I am so sick and tired of NFL simping for the military-industrial complex. That is way more of a concern to me, and their bullshit against like things like, I don't know, rights of free speech. That is way more of an issue to me than them being able to profit off of
Colanello wants us to know that he only watches it to see Taylor Swift.
Okay.
That's his only reason.
And good for you. She's cute. All right. That's the thing. I don't care.
Frankly,
I don't have a problem with any of that.
Here's the thing that makes it so interesting.
They're
because
cute.
If you think about it, Taylor Swift really comes off as sort of a model of what you would think conservative America would want to see as a superstar.
She is. That's the thing.
The idea that they go after her, the fact that she's anything but somebody like Nicki Minaj should tell you all you need to know about who you really should be putting up there. But because she doesn't simp for the Republican Party, she's an enemy of the people.
But I haven't seen her do anything other than recommend that her followers register to vote. So again, I don't see her being political in any way. What is their problem? Like their assumption, oh, big media is paying her and they're with the Democratic Party. He's making so many ridiculous jumps to come up with information. This is a very, very small-minded individual.
What I will also say, not just about Benny Johnson, but just people in general, you've got to remember something. With Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce and Kansas City in the Super Bowl, and the fact that the Super Bowl isn't
exactly this too. Yeah. Exactly.
Isn't for 2 weeks.
Exactly, their 501c3 status that they were able to.
501. Oh, it's five. It is.
It was, and now they're losing it.
But here's the thing that's very important that you have to remember. They want this. They may act like they don't, but they want this because it isn't a question of watching the NFL. The NFL is going to get its ratings no matter what. It's the talking heads that have to have something to bullshit about for the next several weeks because it gets ratings. That's the whole idea. It's that we can talk about this over and over and over again. And all the while, you're not even getting to the heart of what I find to be the one huge issue here, and that is Travis Kelce being a pharma whore. That to me is the problem.
That bothers me. But does it bother me any more than being, yeah, I guess so, because that's the one in healthcare. Because I think about when they're doing insurance, like when I think about like Peyton, but it's for casual, it's what he does it for
conservative
nationwide.
Conservative friend of the show, Base Chat Thunderjock, wants us to know she sips for the left big time. Plenty of evidence for that, which is what makes her an enemy of the people. So so there it is. Okay. Let's finish this out.
But it probably has something to do with
in October
LGBTQ.
The release of like what'll look like a hostage video or a Visiting Angels ad, right? Visiting Angels, and I'll have Joe Biden sitting there all like twisted up, like in a wheelchair, like an eggplant, and he's glazed over skin like a Krispy Kreme donut.
Yeah, I don't want to. Why are we watching this?
Drooling out of the side of his mouth, and Taylor Swift and Mr. Bud Light Pfizer will come in and pat Grandpa on the shoulder and tell all of their brain-dead fans to go vote for him. Taylor Swift, of course, also a psyop for the NFL wives out there.
A psyop?
It's a psyop now. Let me tell you something. Usually you wouldn't think that making a video like this would make any difference because I can distinctly remember, as I'm sure you do as well. Remember back in 2016 when Hillary had every single celebrity in mass coming out in support of her, and Trump was basically all by himself, and he's like, I totally got this, and he totally did have it. So what do you care if Taylor Swift is supporting Joe Biden? You think that's what's going to be the difference in the election?
If Taylor Swift
gets Joe Biden over the finish line, then Trump never deserved to win anyway.
Not just that, but then, man, we should be voting for Taylor Swift. That's
Taylor
some
Swift
power.
Right. Yeah, get
Jesus, that's like the parliamentarian. I mean, man, if Taylor Swift is so powerful and threatening that Donald Trump could lose, I don't know, man. We should consider drafting her to run. We should consider drafting her because clearly she's so. This is the most ridiculous thing, and I do not like the pharma whore guy. I'm not a fan of that, although he is very cute and does have a tight end.
He may not even. He may not even necessarily agree, but hey,
he got the shot.
When you get the money, when they put $20 million in front of you, like how many people are going to say no? He is. Hey, listen, you're dating Taylor Swift. You're kind of a famous guy now. You could actually help us sell product. We like your brand. Totally. Your brand is powerful.
All of that stuff as to what he's saying, all of that's true. But it's not some sinister plot for the Democrats. That's just capitalism and marketing. And by the way, he gives the other problem with that whole line of thinking is that gives the Democrats so much credibility in terms of, it gives them so much credibility in terms of their ability to be strategic and actually, they're so stupid. What makes you think that they're even creative enough to come up with this whole plan? That's what's so absurd about it. Like that she somehow is working, they're in cahoots with the party.
And she may very well be in cahoots with the Democratic establishment. Who gives a fuck?
But that's just who she's affiliated. I just think somebody is very paranoid.
At some point you have to recognize that it's the system that's broken.
Right.
This isn't going to change because, oh no, Taylor Swift should not be supporting the Democratic Party, should not be supporting Genocide Joe. Now, if you came out and you said, anybody who comes out and supports the president and can basically call him a genocidal, maniac, which he is, then that would be something to say. That would be something to call them out on. If Taylor Swift comes out and supports President Biden for re-election, you have every right to tell her that she is supporting genocide. But you know what somebody like Benny Johnson isn't going to do is say that. That's not what he's going to say.
Right. But I haven't heard her do that. No. So until she does something other than encourage people to vote, I think also, from what I'm remembering now, I think they have issues with her stance on transgender.
Maybe.
That's one of the things where they say she's like over woke and stuff like that. I think that's what it has to do with, is the LGBTQ.
Thank you for your insight, Me, Myself, and I. Can we call you Irene? Me, Myself, and Irene. Have you seen that movie?
Yeah, we can. I didn't want to talk about it anyway. Ask him. I don't like talking about any of that shit. Well, that is. You do the programming. I don't want to talk about that. Yes, we can move on.
What do you want to talk about before we go? You don't have anything, do you?
Well, I mean, the main thing I wanted to talk to, we talked with Ryan about, which was the question he asked about UNRWA. That was the main thing that, I
think that the danger here.
Oh, I did want to also tell, and I wanted to mention it to him and I forgot, but I did catch something on Instagram today and I follow a lot of the people that are in Gaza. So I'm seeing things from day, pretty current. And I did see something this morning that a whole bunch of people in Gaza were celebrating and setting off sparklers because they had heard of a ceasefire. And so then when I went to go look it up, I am seeing that they've been talking about it, but I haven't seen anywhere where it says that Hamas accepted it. But I'm wondering if they heard something on the ground, because it just showed them celebrating. We're gonna. So I'm what that getting that a lot more than the State Department.
I think if there's one thing that we can leave,
and I hope that's true. I hope that's true. And when I see, you know what I wanted to talk to you about? Have you seen the images and the videos of the Israelis that are blocking the aid from getting in?
Yes, I've seen that.
And
holding up the Israeli flag?
Yeah, they're blocking aid from getting in because it goes to Hamas. The aid goes to Hamas. They sound so unbelievably ignorant and just so.
Just seek help.
It's just.
And guys, for those of you who don't follow us on social media,
you were saying seek help.
Yeah, I'm telling them to seek. Yeah, those.
No, you're saying seek help.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying seek help. Seek help, and I'm like, why are you talking about seek help?
I don't even know what that means.
Like seek help, like kelp from the ocean.
Oh, you mean like the food?
It's seaweed, kelp, sea kelp.
I didn't realize. Oh yeah,
that's what you were saying. And I'm like, what? I'm like, is there some sort of special sea kelp in Gaza? There probably is, because the Red Sea. And there is seriously good kelp.
Brian, thank you for your service. And even for the people who have served, and if you've been in there for 30 years, you probably were in Desert Storm. At the end of the day, even if it's wrong, never doubt that you had courage that the overwhelming majority of the human species wouldn't have.
That's the thing. I do.
And they are always ready, willing, and able to send you off to die.
They just use
but they won't actually stand up and fight.
We've done a lot of shows with a lot of our friends over at the Eisenhower Network, friend Danny Ho. And so we have covered a lot of veteran issues on this show. And the vast majority of veterans that we've met, and we've spoken with Colonel Wilkerson, we've spoken with Wesley Clark, we've spoken with a lot of different political side, veterans. The majority of them are anti-war. The majority of them are anti-war.
Yeah.
And so when I see people that are complete warmongers, it's infuriating because you're not taking into consideration these people. Seek help, that's good too.
Good, Chris.
That's really good. And the Sikhs do need help. The Sikhs always get screwed over. That's also good. So now I have 3 different Sikh helps that I have to be thinking about in my head. But get some counseling is what he was saying, I think.
Yeah. No,
get some counseling for yourself.
I've always felt, and I have the utmost respect for those that put on the uniform. But
I
do
too.
That, it is one of my, it is probably the biggest regret of my life that I didn't join the military. I wanted to join the Army when I was 18, but I also realized that if I did join, I would have most likely ended up in Iraq or Afghanistan. And the prospect of me getting killed in a war that was so beyond pointless. And I look around at people now who think that there's something different about what's going on in Ukraine or what's going on in Yemen, and especially what's going on in Gaza.
Over and over and over. And now what they're trying to do in Iran.
If you're stupid enough to fall for it,
it's
on your ass.
We need to have someone come on and we need to talk about.
We'll have the Eisenhower Network back.
We need to talk about what's going on with Iran right now, especially right now, because this is potentially like a total shitstorm.
Once you go through Vietnam, you can never look at it the same again. Which is why
I always question the people when the real pro-war mentality. It's because to me, they're generally the pussiest people.
The people, the
they
Bill
are.
Kristols,
Like
the Jennifer Rubins, the Lindsey Graham saying, bomb Iran, bomb them now.
Is there anyone that these
could we just send him off? I mean, I know we wouldn't win anything if we had guys like him.
And people need to understand that there is no winning a war with Iran. Not at all. There's nuclear death. That's what there is. There's nuclear holocaust. That's what there's no winning.
And therein lies.
And by the way, if you are a supporter of Israel or you're concerned even for the people that live in that region, regardless of what the name of the state is, those people will be nuclearly annihilated if we start messing and pushing too many buttons with Iran.
And here is the real danger when people talk about Trump versus Biden. Donald Trump's first instinct is not to go to war. I don't know what Joe Biden's instincts are anymore because I don't feel that they're even there.
Right.
So he is basically just being manipulated to doing whatever they feel that President Blinken wants to do at this point. And as far as President Blinken is concerned, we'll go to World War III.
But the truth is, if you go back and look at all the old clips that are surfacing of Joe Biden talking about Israel, he'd be doing what he's doing. He'd be doing exactly what he's doing. But I did see something interesting, which we will pull up I will find it again when we do address this thing with Iran, where somebody put up this old clip of Joe Biden seeking to impeach W while he was in the Senate, because if he even thinks about going into Iran without congressional approval, then that's grounds for impeachment. And it's Joe Biden saying that. So I would like us to be playing that over and over again while he's sitting there considering going into war with Iran, which there is no winning. There is nuclear death. If they literally do something invading in the territory of Iran, there will be nuclear death. I don't know how to be more clear. And the fact that they're even if they're contemplating this nonsense, because even Joe knows this. He knows this, which is why they're going to do something else, right? Like they'll attack something else, like some sort of Iranian asset somewhere else that they can get away with doing something like that. But if they literally go after a target in Iran, it's over. It's over because Iran will bomb the shit out of Israel. And then that's it. Then that's World War III. Then that's it. So, I'm very, people be very aware of this.
And for our conservative friends in the chat, me, myself, and I, based on your job, Metalopoly, you have to remember what's happening right now is exactly what just happened back in 2012. This is Benghazi 2.0. A few American soldiers were killed in Jordan the other day. We got to go to war with Iran now. We have to go in there. We can't allow any of our soldiers to get killed.
It's just.
This is on repeat. And if you've ever lived it, if you're ever foolish, this is why.
We shouldn't be there in the first place. Here's the thing. What was it? Building 22? Is that what they're calling it? It's Building 22?
Building 7.
No, no, it's called 22. The Tower 22 is the building where the guys got killed. It's somewhere in the area of Jordan, Syria, and Iraq. It's like in this trifecta area. And my question would be, why are we there? We shouldn't even be there. Syria has asked us to leave multiple times. We're illegally occupying Syria. And so we're in places that we ought not be. And so if you get dead being somewhere you ought not be, that does not then make you have the right to then go attack somebody else. You know what I mean? That's like Israel saying this is self-defense. That's absurd.
And what is the proof? It's not a false.
Oh, none whatsoever. None whatsoever.
We should just believe it. Well, just like we should believe that 40 babies' heads were cut off.
And Joe Biden said it.
Kept saying it even after he was told by corporate media sources that this is not true, it didn't happen, and he kept going out there and saying it. Now the question is, did Joe Biden really think to say that himself, or did somebody tell him to keep going out there and saying
it? Well, the first time they told him, the second time he probably forgot that they told him not to say it again, and he probably said it again.
Man.
But he's pathetic. But no, I mean, either way, okay, whether or not it's a false flag or it's real, it very well could be real. But I would argue that they ought not be there. And then that would not have happened if we didn't have our, nose up everybody's asses. Then nobody would be able to shit on us. You know what I'm saying? Like if we weren't all up in it.
Do you know what I am saying?
Do you know what I'm saying? So there's that. And then the fact that discretion is the better part of valor. And I honestly do believe that they're not going to do something aggressive with Iran. They're not. Because even Anthony Blinken, I don't think is that psychotic. I think that is.
I don't know.
I don't think so.
Maybe Anthony Blinken is saying
that makes boots on the ground from us. See, that's then a whole. If they start with Iran, then that means that United States is going to be committing boots on the ground troops, and I do not think they're willing to go there.
That's World War III.
That's it. I'm telling you,
we're already way too close to it to begin with.
It ends in a nuclear holocaust.
This was all avoidable, but the reality is we have a class of people. This is why, for those of you in the chat who thinks that our current incarnation of capitalism can be salvaged, it can't be. Because the system is showing you that the very people who truly benefit from it play God. And that means they can start wars whenever the fuck they want. And if that means they're running the risk of nuclear annihilation is on the table, unfortunately, this is like the movie Don't Look Up, where they truly believe that they are going to have some type of futuristic rocket ship that they can hop into another planet, another solar system, and that they're going to be safe. That's how people like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates think, that they're immune to this, that they are safe. Bill Ackman, all of them.
They are, until they mess with Iran. And then we're all dying of nuclear fallout at some point. Like, I don't know. But it's always been weird to me that you would have multiple nuclear weapons. You don't need multiple nuclear weapons. And it's just not, although, you know what, let's have Matt Ho come back on, because he was just on talking about this with Judge Napolitano. I do watch Judge Napolitano. He's great guests like Matthew Ho. And he was just on specifically talking about the different types of nuclear weapons that we have, and that he could absolutely foresee that Iran dropping one that's a lower rating, okay? But that would be what kicks it off. So it's not all nuclear bombs are Hiroshima. And that was something, and I do not know enough about this, which is why we should have Matthew come back on. But he was talking about that today.
This is also the thing about Trump's vote that is also going to be part of the silent vote that no one's talking about. The anti-war vote, if it push comes to shove, especially in a swing state of consequence, will go to Trump over Biden.
Which is interesting, because even the anti-war sort of faction that seemingly anti-war, the Matt Gaetz and them, they're not anti-war. They just don't want war with Ukraine. They want war with China or probably Iran or whoever the hell else they want war with. They just don't want to be fighting this war in Ukraine. So it's not like those are peaceniks. But yeah, those people are, like a broken clock is right twice a day. So it's like they're right on the Ukraine issue, but for the wrong reasons. That's okay. I'll take that. I don't need people to agree with the reasons. Yeah. For the same reason that those Orthodox Jews, that sect, are anti-Zionist. It did start out. And JR Jr., good.
You have to get to a point where your vote actually is of consequence.
And if you are someone that wants to vote for someone who would not support a genocide,
Dr. West,
you have two choices that I know of. You have Dr. West if he's on your ballot, and you also have Jill Stein if you have Greens on your ballot. She is also anti-genocide and has spoken up against it. Other than that, everybody else is acting like this is not happening. It consumes me pretty much 24/7. I cannot think about other things. This is why I'm so thankful for people like Kate Bogan. I do have a crush on her. I will admit, she's so cute. But I follow her, and it's almost like this one little bright light hearing about something so friggin' horrible as hearing about it from someone cute. But like, this is 24/7 for me. This is like everything now. I'm in the process of like watermelon warfare at my Pilates studio, you know, because there's all these Israelis at the Pilates studio. So now every time I've ordered all these shirts with watermelons on them, so that every time they look at me, and I don't buy ones that are specifically the Palestine ones. That way I have plausible deniability, but I sit there with watermelon shirts. I'm like the watermelon queen of Pilates now, which I feel ridiculous engaging with that, but they started with me. See, they started with me. I don't start with people. But as my friend Rachel has pointed out, that if somebody starts with me, I do have a tendency to take it too far. That is possible. So I am doing watermelon psychological warfare. And you know what, though? If that's the only way I can make a statement to people, so be it. Yes, because I found out that they were talking shit about me to one of my friends. And I don't talk to them. So that means that these people just heard I did or said or saw something on social media and then just decided to start talking shit about me. Yeah, that's not going to go over well.
Smash that like button.
Now
share.
you will look at my watermelon every day. You sit across from me in Pilates. I will be watermelon lady.
To Carne Verde, to me, myself, and Brian. Jimmy Zimzam, Carne Verde, Donald James, JR Jr., Travers, as always, Metalopoly, Colanello, Based Chad Thunderjock, JR Jr., Chris Garrett, Notary. We had a lively chat. We had a big crowd today.
We never found out. Did we ever find out if Notary was a notary? You know, I am a notary.
Randall Giovanetti.
Fellow notary.
Red Cloud, thank you again.
I'm a second generation notary. I say that like it's something that if you can't just pay a license for.
Yeah, really.
No, I'm joking, but I am a second generation notary.
Ray J. Most guys, but
our audience is we get people that sit on like for the duration and like are our people, which I kind of like. When I'm on, like, even on with Jordan the other day, and I wish him all more of this. There were so many people in the chat. I felt like I can't even get involved in a conversation. There's too many people. Like, it's like when you're on people, like even with Luke, and there's like 1,000-something people watching, you can't converse in that way. I can't keep up with the chats. Is this in our chat?
As Tony Clifton wants you to know, it is a notary channel. Smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things that we ask you to do. We appreciate you all very, very much. We'll see you Monday.
Thank you.